I learned about this guy here, Dan Wootton from Following, Johnny and Amber, and the thing is, Dan wrote not such nice things about Johnny in The Sun. But the thing is, Dan's got allegations out on him. This is the ironic part, which brings us to these stories. Now, we got recent news that the Byline Times, who's mainly covering Dan, will not give up. But while we're waiting for the next report, I've been searching for new things, and in the process, I run into some things that I missed. This here is from July 25th, 2023. Not very old, but not very new, but I missed it, and it's called MP's Right to the Sun over Hugh Edwards coverage and Dan Wootton investigation from The Independent, who I must remind you is covering this pretty heavily as well. Let's see what they got. First of all, real quick, since I'm from America, I didn't know what an MP was exactly or what they did, so I looked it up real quick. The UK public elects members of parliament called MPs to represent their interests and concerns in the House of Commons. MPs consider and can propose new laws as well as raising issues that matter to you in the House. This includes asking government ministries questions about current issues, including those which affect local constituents. And they're the ones asking questions about you-know-who. And Hugh Edwards, by the way. Now, before I start, of course, they get into the investigation by The Sun, but we don't have an outcome for that as far as I know. So although this news is a little bit older, we still don't actually have the outcome that they're seeking for. If so, I just missed it probably by a few hours, but I'm pretty sure it's not quite there yet. They start off by saying, the chairwoman of a committee of MPs has written to The Sun over its coverage of allegations against BBC reporter Hugh Edwards and requested details of the newspaper's investigation into its former journalist Dan Wootton. So, for me here, without major details, it's nice to see that these MPs here are taking an interest into Dan, and I gotta assume taking an interest into how it's handled. Maybe if somebody tries to kind of shove it under the rug or let some details escape, they might say, hey, wait a minute, let's do this properly. That's what I'm hoping. They get into some allegations against Hugh Edwards. I don't know huge details on this, but apparently they're similar to the allegations against Dan. And that's why I think people are getting up in a frenzy that the reporting on Dan is a lot more suppressed. They say the letter written to The Sun asked them to explain how they verified the story, which would have been nice when Johnny's story came out. Where were you guys asking questions about how The Sun verified Johnny's story? I guess they would have said, Amber said so. All right, we've been there before, just saying. They say their role's not to challenge the stories, but they would like to know the process and how it's verified, which seems like a good idea. And in Dan's case, now we know we got the passwords used for multiple accounts, so that's a pretty good way right there to verify it. They somewhat repeat a little bit and say because of inaccuracies and things like that, they want to know how it's verified. Specifically, the Mr. Edwards story in this case. The Sun claims coverage of Edwards' allegations had in-depth considerations about privacy and public interest. I'm sure that's what they were thinking. They say that the BBC identified the person, but that wasn't actually confirmed by facts, which is why I think they're asking how they're getting this verification. And then they mention Dan, and they ask what investigations are taking place, which again is a good question. If you're going to say, we're going to investigate Dan, well, let us know how you're going to do that. Don't just say it, because that could just be you saying it and doing some behind-the-scenes investigation that no one knows about. Let's hear the details. They do say, however, it's appropriate if the findings are kept out of the public eye. Well, we want to see what's up with those, to be honest. Legally, I guess maybe it's sound. I'm not sure how the law works there. But either way, you know what? I bet it's going to get out. So that's about it. Technically, this is a throwback, but it's less than a month old, so maybe not quite a throwback just yet. I mean, we don't have the results here. If we had the results, this would be a throwback, said and done, but we don't. We're still waiting for the results. So it's good to know what was inquired. Let me know what you think down below, doing shout outs, special thanks, things like that. If you're not subscribed here, consider it. If you don't, I'll be sad. but I'll get over it. See you next time.